Now, before I go off and introduce the two speakers for today, I do need to read this disclaimer. The content presented today is not directed to any investors or potential investors and does not constitute an offer to sell or a solicitation of an offer to buy any securities. And with that said, it is my great honor to introduce today's speakers. For today, we have Roger Luo, Managing Partner at Embedding VC, and Yuka Alanen, Managing Partner at Rebellion Ventures. So let's get started. Roger, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Roger Luo. I'm the manager of Embedding GP. So I'm an AI operator and the builders turn investors. So I was studying AI before AI was a cool topic. So I got my PhD in machine learning in 2011. So after that, I work at different industrial labs and have been a co-founder of two AI SaaS startups. So most recently, before starting Embedding VC, I was head of machine learning at Niantic, so the parent company which built the Pokemon Go. And so I've been an active angel investor and a venture partner and a scout for 6 years. So over the time, we invest in 30 startups, 20-ish are AI startups, which like 3 of them become a unicorn.
That's a very interesting background, Roger. I've wasted many hours on Niantic's Pokemon Go product. Yuka, why don't you go ahead and give a quick introduction?
Thanks, Niels. Hey, everyone. My name is Yuka Alanen. I am the managing partner of Rebellion Ventures based in Silicon Valley. My background is that I've been an operating executive and a startup builder for over 20 years. With leadership experience in building and scaling companies. I have helped build 3 VC-backed startups to $3.5 billion in IPO and M&A exits. Most recently, I was SVP at PagerDuty, where I helped take the company public and led the strategy to revolutionize digital operations with AI and automation. I've helped build numerous product lines and businesses and led over 500 partnerships and over 30 M&A deals in this ecosystem and coached tens of AI and automation entrepreneurs. Nowadays, I'm personally focused on helping entrepreneurs build AI and automation companies to revolutionize operations and business models with leveraging my operating track record and experience, as well as the network that I've built with Rebellion, where we have over 60 operating executives and industry experts who are part of Rebellion and help our portfolio companies as advisors. I welcome connecting with all of you over LinkedIn.
Thank you, Yuka. So you mentioned the AI ecosystem. This is a question for both of you, but maybe you can start. Can you tell us a little bit more about the overall AI landscape? Like, we often talk about AI as if it's like this one big thing, but like, are there like different types of company categories we are starting to see emerge here?
Very much. The market opportunities and the competitive dynamics and the investment models and business models are very different depending on what part of the AI landscape you look at. So if I simplify this for you, you can think about 3 categories. One is what I call applied AI and automation, where you apply AI in a specific industry vertical or in a functional business process to improve the operation and solve business problems. Then another category is what I call specialized AI and automation enablement, which is about enabling specific kinds of new applications and new customers with very specialized focus. And then a third category is what I would call general AI infrastructure and general foundation models. This includes OpenAI, Microsoft, AWS, Google, and so on. And if you look at these 3 categories, they're all very different in terms of what the market opportunities are, what kinds of opportunities exist for startups, what types of investments you need to make to succeed in these categories, what the competitive landscape looks like, and also what it looks like from a VC investment perspective. We're from a Rebellion perspective, we're mainly partnering with entrepreneurs who are focused on applied AI in a specific industry vertical or business process, or provide more specialized AI enabling platforms. We're not really focused on general AI infrastructure and these general foundation models. So we're not really trying to compete directly with OpenAI or Microsoft or AWS or Google in what they are good at. As that's a very different game. It's very capital intensive and very different dynamics. So very important to look at different categories and different ways and understand what the dynamics are.
Great. Roger, do you feel that matches your perspective, or are there other categories you would say we shouldn't forget?
Yeah, so you can give a really good overview here, and because I think it's not the focus of both of us, which so Yuka didn't mention that, but I was just so glad to add that, which is like the hardware, the more like a infrastructure layers, which could also have like an interesting place in the next decades, right? So like NVIDIA definitely have a lead here, but due to the limit of computational resource, like GPU is like the commodity now. So there will be also like startups play here, but hardware is also a larger investment. So like beside separate these different layers, you can also look into the technology stack, or like the problems the AI startup trying to solving. So we have definitely start to see more like productivity tool being emerging because generative AI, both text to image, like a copywriting apps, and in different verticals and domains. And the automations also become a lot of new applications are enabled by generative AI technology, which was like not possible before. So definitely a lot of exciting opportunity here as well.
Great. So I imagine the scene in like 2023 today for a fund manager is very different from how it was even 2022 and especially 2021. Like things are heating up. I'm guessing more and more fund managers want to kind of compete in the space. Has it become much more competitive for you to get like the right type of portfolio companies, or how does 2023 look different from 2022 and before?
Yeah, so in the past, I think during COVID period, so like also a lot of the funding environment is much easier. So a lot of very easy for startup to raise money at very crazy valuations. So the different things right now compared to I think in AI compared to Web3 is that like a lot of people have conviction versus like Web3 was more like maybe like a more contrarian view, like you have a believer, right, or you have haters. But in AI, people do believe in the value, and we see a lot of startup emerge every day. So like it's become for each of the small sectors, there will be multiple competitors. It does become very difficult to find the right deal or evaluate them. And in terms of getting the deals, it's more like it's much more deal to see, right? So it's get less time to doing the due diligence and finding which are the deals to battle. Yeah.
So Niels, my thoughts on this, and you may be surprised to hear this, but competition is not really an issue for us because of how and where we invest. I'll explain what that means. As competition from a VC perspective, it really depends on the investor's model and how they invest. So let's look at two different situations. One situation is that you've got a large VC firm and they need to write large checks, they need to lead rounds. And in their case, it can be more of a zero-sum game with other large VC firms in terms of being in competition in terms of who can lead the round and get these large allocations. But that's not really our situation at all. Okay. Our situation is very different. What we hear from entrepreneurs is that them giving us an allocation is a no-brainer for the entrepreneur because they very much want to tap into our network and our experience, and they recognize the high value add that we can bring. And at the same time, the check size that we write is small. So it makes it really easy for entrepreneurs to make room for us, meaning that they can oversubscribe the round, they can increase the round size to accommodate us, and the incremental dilution for the entrepreneur is minimal. when they take the check from us. So from the entrepreneur perspective, we aren't really competing with the other investors. And then from other investors' perspective, what I hear from them is that they see us as a small, high value add investor. They recognize that our check size is small enough that it doesn't take away their allocations, and they actually want our network and expertise involved. They see us as partners, not competitors, and they want to collaborate on deals. So it really depends on what type of VC firm you are and how you invest when it comes to competition. I can provide more comments on valuations in terms of what I'm seeing and due diligence. Yep. Let me pause there.
No, so I want to pick up on one of the things you're saying. So is it fair to say that if you have already established yourself as a fund manager in this field, it's much easier to get the high quality deals than someone starting just now from scratch without that background? And if that is the case, what advice would you give to someone entering the scene just now?
Yeah, it's three things that I would call out. Number one, that you have to have a successful track record in either building AI companies or investing in AI companies, but having a very, very successful track record in this space is really critical. The second thing is to have an ability to add lots of value to entrepreneurs. That's, as I mentioned, that it really changes the game in terms of how entrepreneurs think about you and whether you're actually competing or not in terms of allocations. But really, you have to have an outstanding ability to add a lot of value to entrepreneurs. And then a third one is to have an exceptional network in the industry. So I think those are kind of critical ingredients to being able to be successful.
No, thank you so much, Yuka, for that answer. And yeah, you mentioned valuations. Maybe I'll start with Roger on this one. Like, have things changed for valuations as well in the past year? Like, are you seeing deals that are like a bit too egregious in terms of like, oh, they're trying to value it at this because there is this hype now, or has that been tempered by the overall fundraising environment at the moment?
Yeah, so I would say it's overall, like we start to see that the late stage deals valuation get heavily cut. We have yet to see this on early stage valuation, especially on the AI side. Yeah, deal definitely got hot. And I think we have seen some hype on some of the very crazy deals, especially the foundation layer deals, which like definitely affect some of the funders' mentality in the kind of valuations they have been asking. So overall, I feel that look at the valuation, really look at it some grander thought, right? So like what are the team are building, like what are the terms, like really go back to the VC fundamental, VC 101s, and like so it's we need to filter out. We have start to see some of the non like venture backable business, which are probably like a non-scalable business, which start by adding AI and start asking for unreasonable valuation. So that's something that at least I will try to avoid. And like in terms of valuations, I feel that more experienced funders, some more experienced funders tend to like realize that very high valuations doesn't help them in the next round. So it's become more reasonable. So rather I start seeing some inexperienced funders and who come from like a really good AI backgrounds and start asking for unrealistic valuation.
Okay, very interesting. I'm also wondering if there's a trend of like companies starting to slap AI on their existing product. Well, it's not really AI. Like we saw this during some of the blockchain craze as well. And Long Island iced tea was suddenly called Long Island blockchain for some reason, and it caused like a brief blip in valuation spike. But yeah, are we seeing a phenomenon like that? And how do you deal with that as a fund manager?
Yeah, so every company try to add AI as it's part of their story, which makes sense in most of the case, as like AI is really horizontal, it's can empower or help everything. But if it's like a simple wrapper on on open APIs APIs, or like if it's just like AI is like maybe help slightly improve the utility of the app they are building, but it doesn't. It's not like its core functions. I will evaluate it at different lens. Like as our fund, like I mainly invest in AI native apps. I take a really close look at what are the team is building, and and what are the DNAs, if the company really have the DNA AI in it of AI. Yeah.
I'll add my Niels. I'll add my thoughts on those two things. First, on valuations. What we actually see is reasonable and attractive valuations in the seed stage. And I'll give you a data point. This is concrete data point from our investments. Our recent average pre-money valuation has been 12 million. So we believe that type of valuation enables very large long-term upside potential, 30x to 100x or more type of potential. So that's a recent data point from our seed stage deals in AI and automation. I would also highlight that people shouldn't be too focused on news stories about a few AI companies with super high valuations. Those are outliers and not representative of the overall industry. And those outliers in terms of very high valuations are especially the case in what I mentioned earlier regarding general AI infrastructure and foundation models. That's a very capital intensive part of the market, and that in turn then tends to translate into high valuations, because when you have to invest a lot of capital to build these infrastructure or foundation models, you have to make very big bets, and you have to have then high valuations for those. But that's not representative of the AI market more broadly in terms of the number of companies. So don't look at those outliers being the representative of the entirety of the space. In terms of what you asked about how people are adding AI features, I think it's really important to make a distinction between, if you're adding an AI feature to an existing product, existing architecture, existing service, versus if you're doing something that is significantly new, groundbreaking, revolutionary, radical, very different dynamics. A lot of companies can add different types of incremental AI features, but those kinds of incremental features tend to add incremental value. Whereas if you can do something that is more radical, more fundamental, then you can create also more radical fundamental value.
Yeah, because essentially this is still VC, and like especially in seed stage, you are doing bets that have like a 10-year investment horizon. And this is what I imagine is the challenge for managers, is that there's so much new companies getting started, and there is this hype. People don't want to miss the boat, but you need to make a bet that will be defensible for, you need to project 10 years down the line. So I was wondering how do you like vet a company's roadmap, for instance, see if it's viable? Yeah, so from my perspective, I don't pay attention to hype or those kinds of things. What I pay attention to is how are you creating revolutionary value to customers? Who are your target customers? What is their problem? How are you solving that problem in a way that is radical, that is revolutionary, that can unlock massive productivity gains or create new revenue for them by using AI and automation? And that's really, it's looking at, are you creating really some revolutionary value for customers? And then you have the ingredients of building a great business. The other part of building a great business is to have a great team, people who can really think differently and think about, how do you solve customer problems in a new, radically different way to create that type of value, and how do you bring the right skill sets and the right values and right capabilities to build a
successful company. So I think it's really important to start with those, and then you can start looking at more and more things to validate the opportunity. But really, I think those are the fundamentals that we start with.
Great. Roger, you mentioned team earlier, the company's team as one of the main things to do due diligence on. OpenAI had their conference this week, and one of the things they mentioned was they see a future where everyone has their own personalized AI and so on. So I'm imagining the barrier of entry is getting a lot smaller for some people to start a company. And do you think we're going to see a lot of non-traditional founders entering the scene? And how do you vet people with a more unknown background?
Yeah, over the time. So, and I mainly work with founders with product engineering or research background. So okay. For the people who come from a product background, I definitely see very diverse, diverse, they have different stories, right? So what I appreciate most are what are the unique insight they bring for the particular problem they are solving, and how good is the founder market aligned. You said it very well, right? So OpenAI really lower the barrier of the entry of technology, right? So not every company need to have its own large language model, let alone fine-tune models, or but then it's more important on what kind of problem the founder are solving, and who have the proprietary data, who are able to build a software really Yuka said, right? Address the pain point of your customer users, and build a barrier on top of it. So that's one thing I tend to put it's a heavy weighted on my checklist. With that said, as this field is evolving so fast, and I'm also looking to founders' vision, and if I'm able to predict the future, at least in the next few years, how this AI is going to evolve. So to be able to ride the wave, that's also very important.
Yeah. Niels, I'll give you a bit of a kind of historical perspective and analogy in terms of how this space has evolved. If you look back 5 to 7 years ago, it was usually very expensive, very time-consuming to build an AI startup, because you basically had to build the whole technology stack yourself. So it took a long time. It was very capital-intensive, and often when you were at seed stage, you didn't have paying customers or necessarily even a product. And now things have changed a lot in terms of now there's more infrastructure to leverage and build on, so you can launch companies faster and more capital efficiently, which is something that, especially when we invest small checks into these companies, we appreciate that. We appreciate the capital efficiency. It may be harder for large firms that want to deploy very large amounts of capital, which is why they may need to focus on the infrastructure and those different battles there. But it's I look at this being very positive in terms of enabling a lot of startup innovation in a more capital efficient model, but it does require for you to think about how you're building some distinctive value add and how you're building a sustainable competitive advantage, and kind of given that some of the entry barriers maybe coming down. But there's also an analogy to, if you think about SaaS companies over the past decade or beyond, when AWS launched their cloud infrastructure infrastructure as a service around 2008 or so, that helped the whole generation of SaaS companies to go to market and launch products much faster, and everybody benefited out of that. So similarly, I think there's an opportunity for a lot of AI startups to be created leveraging these infrastructures and platforms.
Great. Speaking of infrastructure, OpenAI seems to be one of the front runners here, starting their marketplace and so on. I'm just thinking of, you mentioned Amazon. Do you think companies like OpenAI are going to be playing a similar part in sucking up a lot of that market space, or is it still too early to say like, okay, they're definitely one of the Amazons of this market? And basically my question is, do you think we'll have like a few dominant players with like a bunch of subsidiary companies, like an app store model, or is the pie large enough for like multiple smaller companies to be very successful in their own right?
Yeah, from when you think about the infrastructure layer, OpenAI is kind of clearly building things that are analogous to what AWS, Microsoft, Google, and others have built in the cloud infrastructure layer, in terms of some of the foundational elements on top of which you can build applications. They are given the scale needed to build infrastructures. If you look at cloud infrastructure, there aren't a lot of there aren't necessarily a lot of vendors doing that. It tends to be more consolidated. Similarly, you could anticipate that same phenomenon when you look at basic generic AI infrastructures. You could anticipate fewer players. Where there will be a lot of innovation will be especially in the application layer. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily building directly on top of OpenAI. It may be one of those things that companies may use. But often when I look at many of the companies that are doing interesting things, even if they use OpenAI's APIs, they are doing a lot more than just building a thin wrapper around them. So they're really adding a lot of technology, a lot of IP, but in the other layers of the stack. Similarly, when you look at SaaS companies that build on top of AWS, there was a lot of IP, a lot of technology, a lot of know-how, and they were able to build very successful, very large SaaS companies based on that. And I don't think the distribution model will be purely through app stores. Again, if you look at SaaS companies and others, cloud marketplaces, some of the business happens there, but there are a lot of different ways to reach customers.
Thank you so much for that answer, Yuka. This sort of ties into one of the questions we have from the audience here, and everyone, please be encouraged to add your questions here, as we are going to be answering some of them. We have a question from Mike Chan, who is asking, given what OpenAI recently released regarding assistants and GPTs, how are you now assessing AI wrapper startups? And you can both answer this question, obviously.
Yeah, so it's Go ahead, Roger.
Oh, thanks. Roger. Yeah. Yeah. So the AI wrappers, being always people's being like a dangerous areas that we need to take a close look at it, right? So I kind of mentioned it earlier that when we look at these AI wrapper startups, a lot of people, some investors try to avoid that, saying there's no value. But I think there are still a lot of diamonds in it, right? So it really depends on what the problems the wrapper company is solving, and also are they able to on top of it, are they able to really build some awesome product, which look at the old mode, right? So what are the utilities of the product? Right. Can they do they have distributions? Are they able to doing some of the network effect, or through the product really because the large language model API is just just a one predictive functions, and on top of it there are a lot of other work, other functions need to be built to make to really increase the utility of the product, someone is building. And so with that said, it's really yeah, so I would say it's really take it. And also I think a lot of people, at least in the first half years, maybe I've seen some startup or the industrials, we still not certain about what's the OpenAI's advantage here. So, but as this ecosystem continue to evolve, like as Yuka also predicted, which I also agree, which is we might end up with a few oligopolies and who providing these fundamental large language models, and plus the open source one will be a good augment for the industrial. So in that case, it's like a lot of startup will just focus on developing on top of that, and which is not necessarily a bad thing. And yeah, so and it's so I wouldn't so like I would say like really go back to the to the fundamentals and look into how what the companies are building and other things in like when you are evaluating a startup.
I'll add two thoughts here. First, I think Sam Altman from OpenAI said yesterday on stage that you shouldn't build thin wrappers on top of OpenAI because there's not a lot of value add you then adding there, and people should anticipate that they will keep adding the obvious features, and some of these thin wrapper startups have been building things that you could very quickly see that their value add will be very limited and will likely go away. But then there are a lot of companies that may be calling OpenAI's APIs, but they're just adding a lot of value. And it's like, I would not call them at all any kind of wrapper. That would be completely a mischaracterization of a company. So I think there'll be a lot of high value add solutions and actually platforms. There'll be like stacks of platforms, so people can even build platforms that then call OpenAI's APIs. They may call other APIs. So a lot of opportunities to do that and just build tremendous value add to customers there. The second thing I would highlight is that there are also a lot of opportunities to build more specialized AI models that have nothing to do with OpenAI. So for instance, there can be things that you can do in a specific domain or in a specific like technology area, such as computer vision or machine sensing and so on, where OpenAI is not really, they may not, they and some of the other generic platforms may not even have that much to offer. So a lot of opportunities to build companies either in adjacent areas where you can innovate still in the fundamental models, or then build just high value add, high value companies where OpenAI may be just one of the APIs that you're using.
Okay, so there's still a lot of room left for innovation. We have another question from Gusto, which also is about wrappers to some extent. He's asking, how do you assess defensibility of AI business models? Not just talking about wrappers, but also the likelihood of generalist incumbents to easily deploy competing models into successful startups and niches.
I think this goes back to what I said earlier about looking at if it's incremental innovation, if it's incremental features, and if it doesn't require architectural change or doesn't require significant business model change, and if they are strong incumbents, then yeah, it's probably pretty easy for incumbents to add those kinds of incremental features. But then again, the value that you're creating for customers is probably also incremental. So it's not a very interesting investment opportunity or startup opportunity. So especially what I look for is things where you can do something much more fundamental, something much more radical, something much more revolutionary, which is why I'm calling it rebellion. And then when you fundamentally do something that is radically new or architecturally new from a technology perspective, then you have opportunities to do something interesting, as often then entrepreneurs can do something that would be very hard for incumbents and their legacy architectures to adapt to. Or then if you can disrupt the business model more broadly, then there are a lot of opportunities, as it's not just technology, but it's really the business model, the operating model. And those are things are harder for incumbents, because even if you can innovate in technology, but it's very hard for an incumbent business to change their entire business and operating model. And then I would also add that there are brand new areas, complete white space, in terms of new products and new services where there may not even be really incumbents to worry about. A lot of opportunities to innovate there.
Okay, so there's still a lot of untapped blue oceans out there. I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about one of the some of the challenges AI faces at the moment, and one of which is data poisoning that's starting to happen. People trying to sabotage certain AI models. Like there's people who have said like some AI use cases may be the best we can get them today because they're all trained on like pure data, but as things go on, there will be more poisoned data. What's your kind of take on this? Is this a reasonable fear, or are there a lot of things that will mitigate that?
So I can take it first. So I don't necessarily agree on this view, and we have already started seeing that the company, like the leading AI companies, put a lot of emphasis on alignment and the guardrails they want to put on top of it. Today's AI model is smart enough to help like filtering out some of these the noisy or biased information into the model. Is up to the developers to decide on how they're going to feed and train their models. And of course, there's still a lot of unknown here, and require a lot of research and care. So I feel that it's definitely works and need to be like there are still a lot of research to go. And regarding the data, right, the open world data is like the open internet data is just a small chunk of all the data people have ever generated. But just some of the data haven't been digitized in the past. And there are a lot of the proprietary data hide behind the paywall and properties. Also, there are like in this wave, like there are more automation happening. So there's more workflow data, which or like how human works have never been digitalized. So this data could also become valuable to increase the capability of AI. As we also talk about the vision to have like the personalized human, like the AI agent for each individuals. There are a lot of other information we can capture here. Privacy is a concern, but if we are able to make sure that there's no data leakage, and imagine a personal assistant really know your what you like and what you want to do, like I can see tremendous value here. And today's approach on training the large language model was very different from the early days when the people start doing AI, like when focus on more reinforcement learning, such as like you might heard about like AlphaGos, which have machines play chess together with each other, which kind of is like similar to people was worrying that like AI is training on generating the output of another AI. But however, I feel that's where like a lot of new exciting things could really happen, right? So in the analogy on AlphaGo is that it's because of the exponential combination of playing a Go chess, right? So a lot of the plays AlphaGo is able to do is very different, have never played in the human history in the past. Okay, so and some of these there are some new exciting movements. So I'm very excited to see. I cannot predict the future, but I'm really excited to see new things emerging. Can really bring the human intelligence to the next level.
Okay, no, great answer. So I'm gonna quickly summarize part of it, and then I'll let you continue, Yuka. So part of what you're saying is like we can't just dump everything in a model. There's quality information that has not been digitized anyway, but companies may need to start getting more selective of what they put in these large LLMs. Okay, Yuka?
Yeah, so overall, we're in very early stages of AI use cases, barely just scratching the surface. And there's going to be a ton of innovation going forward. And the concern that you noted, it relates specifically to large language models, which again is only a portion of the AI landscape. There's a lot of innovation, a lot of development happening in more specialized models or models inside of companies, private or proprietary models, and where that concern is not really an issue. And overall, if you look at the amount of content in the world to feed these models, there's a lot of content out there, and AI generated content is only a small fraction of that content. And even when that gets used as part of a training corpus, it doesn't mean that the model would go necessarily bad. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to innovate in LLMs and other models and solve various technical challenges. I would note that everything that becomes popular and valuable and used broadly tends to also become a target for attacks and exploitation. And it's important to take those threats seriously and identify vulnerabilities and then mitigate and remediate those vulnerabilities. And that's also a continued area for very important innovation in the industry. And again, I just look at that as an area where we're still early, but a lot of innovation to come.
So some of that does. In order to like protect the landscape, what's the role like governments can play in this, or is this something you would say falls into more like the portfolio companies themselves to ensure that?
Overall, when you think about ethical, responsible use, when you think about safety and trust and of AI, that's absolutely critical, and we all have a role to play in this, including us as VC fund managers. And personally, I think about that as a priority. It's really a key part of ensuring that we can use AI as a force for good and have a positive impact and use it responsibly. If I think about from my perspective, what it means for me in practice is three things. One is how to evaluate and select companies with whom we want to partner in terms of them using AI in an ethical, responsible way and being thoughtful about safety and security and trustworthiness of the AI. And then also second, how we guide and coach those companies in terms of having that as a priority and being thoughtful about that as they build these products and services. And then thirdly, it's also to talk about that topic actively and sponsoring proactively ethical and responsible development. Now, when it comes to governments and legislation, I think it's a really important question to look at where and how regulation and legislation can play a role. I do have one concern that I'll just call out, which is that when you look at this from a startup perspective, there's a concern that it's the big incumbent companies that have the resources to invest in lobbying the regulators and legislators, and small startup innovators, they don't necessarily have the resources to do that. And there's a risk that incumbents possibly could use regulation in a way that might protect them or might help their position or might bias things, given their resources to do things that startups might not be able to do. And we should not necessarily assume that these big incumbent companies have purely altruistic motivations when they think about regulation, and we need to be careful that regulation doesn't stifle competition and innovation, especially in a way that could harm startups versus big companies. But currently, when I look at my portfolio companies, I don't see any significant regulatory risks, but it's something that I think about when I look at the industry and the startup landscape more broadly as something we need to watch out for. Okay,
that's very interesting. So you're saying that there is a chance that the larger companies might kind of pull the ladder up and protect themselves by sometimes helping write the legislation themselves, or just having more means to defend themselves legally from stuff that a small startup can't swallow in terms of legal costs. Okay, Roger,
even if it might happen unintentionally, but there might be those consequences that we need to watch out for.
Okay, Roger, do you have anything to add on this topic?
I don't have much to add, but I have shared the same concerns Yuka have. I think it's important for the whole VC industry to join the if there's going to be registrations, to make sure that the startup are taken care of, and the innovation are not blocked or being slowed down because of this. And it's also very important for every individual of us as a capital allocators to to align well and decide that we are going to allocate capitals and invest on ethics startups.
Thank you. Okay, and let's move on to something else entirely. How do you as fund managers use AI in your day-to-day life? Does it help you with fund formation and the administration?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Yuka.
Yeah, so in the fund activities, I especially use it for market and industry research. I also use it for meeting transcriptions and summaries. And then I also test startups' AI products hands-on when possible. I think it's really important to have that hands-on experience and understanding of startups' products, especially when you're evaluating and considering them or helping them. Where I don't really use AI's decision-making regarding investments, as if you think about different asset classes and types of investments, at one end, you've got highly transactional hedge funds that process very large amounts of quantitative data. And then on the other end, you have seed and pre-seed investing, where data is mostly qualitative, human evaluation plays a critical role, judgment is critical, relationship building is very critical, and we're often investing things that are just brand new kinds of things that don't even exist yet. So I think it's I think in terms of decision making, you can do a lot with the hedge funds and highly transactional quantitative type of investing, less so in this type of seed pre-seed investing. So that's a quick overview.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, so beside like a copywriting and the summarization are the Gen AI features I use most heavily. I have a more like a wide idea, as I come from a builder background, which is that today's AI is probably not smart enough, but as it evolves, I want to build an investment committee based on AI, and not saying they're going to dictate my investment decision, but imagine that I have Elon, Steve Jobs, and all the smart people as an agent who can be a sounding board and challenge me on investment decision. It could be really fun.
That's very interesting. Roger, you also have an academic background. What type of role do you think AI will play in the education field in the coming years?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about these programs as I'm like a parent of two young kids. I think it's definitely very important roles, but it's like unwrapped it. There are many different aspects. I think for education, in my opinion, it's really important is the learning process. So even through you learn to learn the math, you learn the thinking process, learn how to learn. So continuous learning is very important. As a human, we always learn how to use tools to augment our capabilities. I do have some concern on our education system that they're able to adapt fast and prepare, especially I have a younger kid, but more like students who are in college or maybe in senior high, and prepare them to make sure that they are ready to the new workforce. But overall, I think the value of AI will bring into education is really positive. Why? Because this GPT-4, I think, are the best tutors. Right? Internet already makes things more accessible and flatten the world. In Silicon Valley, we have access to the best mind, but it's not necessarily true for the remaining part of the world. But like a GPT or this large language model really accelerate that. Right, so you now have the best tutor in a lot of domains where people can ask an information question for a curious kid can get their question answers. And a lot of prompt I try is try to explain some series in understandable for a 5-year-old kid, and GPT do really well here. Yeah, I'm an investor on a company called Magic School. Magic School. It's an AI assistant for teachers. So they use their tools to help with school planning, differentiation, homework, and writing assessment. So on average, it sells it saves like teachers 1 or 2 hours every day. So really reduce the help with the teachers burnout problem. Also help like kids like advanced kid like to able to prepare them for like a differential homework. So I do think that with these AI tools so it can really assist can really make educations more accessible. Also really empower both the student and the teachers to make the schools to really fulfill its the purpose. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of democratization of knowledge that would otherwise come from tutors. That's interesting. We do need to end on time here. I don't know, Yuka, do you want to weigh in on this same topic? This may be the last answer for today.
Yeah, I think it's really important to look at this look at AI more broadly as an opportunity to elevate human work and elevate humans to higher, better outcomes. And but it's obviously important to use it responsibly and be have clear guardrails and clear rules in terms of what's how we can use it and for what, especially in educational context. But I just see a lot of opportunities going forward to elevate human capabilities, elevate education, and help people learn much better, leveraging AI. It will ultimately lead to higher, better outcomes, especially if it's used responsibly.
Okay, well, all of this was very educational. Thank you both, Roger, Yuka, so much. Maybe Ben, you can post their LinkedIn's in the chat once more. This brings us to the end of our event. I hope this was insightful for all of you, and we hope to catch you on the next edition of these. As mentioned, we do these about weekly. So check the Go VC Labs events page for more information on our upcoming events. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thanks, everyone.